Here we are in the Aurora studio.
Thank you. Great studio.
Oh, indeed.
Love it.
Thanks for coming up the way. The last time we spoke, we were in Blacksburg. That
Right.
was about roughly a month ago, I believe. And really thank you for coming up here to our new headquarters. We're still going to be representing strong there in Blacksburg, but we're doing expanded coverage here in Roanoke, which you have experience here in the city. So it's really fortunate for you to come up here to our studio. Just to recap, and also for myself a little bit, since the reason we spoke last time was due to a letter from the Attorney General Miyares. Excuse me if I say that incorrectly. And that was reported on by Cardinal News. Somewhat of, make sure I get this right, an ultimatum letter, perhaps. How would you describe the letter? And can you even speak about the letter on the record?
Absolutely. It's good to be here, by the way, and I love the new space. I think the letter, it was a form letter. It was a form letter. Many businesses like mine have now received the exact same letter. And I just don't think, to be honest with you, I don't think the Attorney General even knows who we are. I think that came from someone in his office because they have to respond to every complaint. And I think an official complaint, this is my opinion, but in my opinion, official complaint was given to the office in the form of an article with Cardinal News, and they had to respond to the complaint. And that is a form letter that they send out to every respondent.
Not a personal attack, perhaps.
I don't think so. Now that it's been a while, but I felt like it was a bit of a personal attack in the beginning because, we were the first to get one.
Well, with it being the legislation being murky there, it's any kind of letter from the Attorney General of the state where you live is alarming, especially for a business owner.
Certainly.
So as for why the timing of it seems to relate to a news article, it doesn't seem to be a part of any kind of political push towards legislating the industry in the state. So it's still on the books as the old law from the 1700s, which allows you to function as a business. The letter seemed to be a warning to the amount of THC that was in the products, I suppose, that the reporter from Cardinal News sent to the labs, coming at above 14%, I believe.
I believe so, but in the United States, the legal percentage for THC in cannabis is 34%. So everything, it seemed to be a clickbait type situation where, Indeed. Oh, look at this, there's heavy metals and there's this and there's that. But at the bottom of the article, you had to read the entire article to get to the bottom of it. Every single element was under legal limits. And to use heavy metals as a point would be kind of moot because water has heavy metals. We drink water. So, and it was below all of the legal limits. So what do I think about it? I mean, I could use a lot of bad words about it, but it really doesn't matter.
It causes anger for sure, and it also anger and how to deal with it. It does. Not anger, but just not getting the facts straight.
Right.
And it's the oldest school technique in the world to make a big headline out of something and then prove it later.
Right. Right.
So you're referring to the headline that uses the words mold and metals.
Yes.
In 35 whatever point font.
Right.
Which is in a headline about your product, right? So, for instance, if we went to the Kroger produce department and we did the exact same test on a bunch of strawberries there, what might we find? So that's unfair to use in a headline. The word mold and metal in big letters is kind of what we're honing in here, because how is perhaps a naive reader to react when they read that?
Right.
it's obviously claiming the danger of what you're providing to your community, which is somewhat of an affront that I can understand why you don't want that to be the name of your business. So the point being is the amount of molds and metals is nominal, right?
Absolutely.
Compared to, I'm just going to use the bunch of strawberries.
Right.
Comparison. Water's an excellent one. If you read the entire article, the testing was shady at best.
I would like to know what lab it was done at. In the state of Virginia, we do not have not even one official lab for testing of cannabis. Now, we do have some colleges. Commonwealth University, for instance, has a lab that is commonly used to test cannabis for the state and for different people. You can also pay to have it tested there, as well as a brand new lab that was just opened up. But still, we don't have any legal parameters in the state of Virginia for a lab to use as a standard sheet. So I'd like to know whose lab was that in somebody's house? What lab was used, and who are they?
It was. I can recall it, and we can pull this up. On the screen right now. But I believe it was a lab in Florida, which has a completely different. But one, do you know this person? And two, why Florida? It seems silly. And also three, why after paragraph 17 you put the test results that are in your headline. We live in the state of Virginia, agriculture land, basically.
Right.
Tobacco land. We have the best agriculture, arguably, in the land even.
Right.
So testing not being done locally, it's absurd, basically.
Kind of frightening.
And you got to figure it out fast, because the data is super important right now. Any kind of misnomers being spread around is dangerous.
Really?
And it can also be used politically. If you tell somebody they got mold in something they're getting ready to ingest, then they're going to have second thoughts. And so coming back to that absurd headline and Cardinal News Reporting and what has happened since that is where we're at. I'm glad we started there too, because in a short-term memory cycle that we live in, then that headline comes and go, and then people will remember molds and metals.
Right.
As opposed, which it has shady testing at the bottom of the article, and it's old hat stuff, and clickbait is. You would hope a nonprofit news source would not have to resort to gathering readers in such ways. I would definitely root for them, and it's cool to hear about their work with NPR. But certainly, just this angle of their reporting, and you were talking specifics, and who could talk about the reporter, or you could talk about the publisher. I think it's probably best to leave it in the editor of who to blame for publishing this in such a way that is either targeted towards you personally, or ignorant to the big elephant in the room of the daily deaths that occur to opioids.
Right.
It's very naive to mention the dangers of metals and mold when we can go to a CVS and come back with things that are much more dangerous than molds or metals.
Thank you.
They kill people on the daily,
Right.
So why this discussion now? It's what's going to become of it? What's the next steps? How have you reacted a month later? I imagine you have considered shuttering your stores, or what are the next moves here with the letter hanging over your head, so to speak?
Absolutely, we have. Several other businesses like mine have also received the letter, so I don't feel as singled out. I think because we were the biggest at the time, it made it easier to target us, and that's okay. And I have never not spoken with anyone from the media if they asked. No one's ever asked. To say that they tried to contact me or they tried to contact anyone in the company would, kind of be absurd, because any one of us would have responded. And that's okay. That's okay too. But in our industry, getting back to what we do, is very different to speak about publicly. Talking about adult share and or the subsequent alleged just straight out selling of cannabis. Those are two entirely different things. And the law that we're talking about that was written in 1684 was expanded on in the 70s, in 1972, and then again in 1977, just to change wording. That's all it was for, just to change wording. Inside the letter that was sent to me, or to us at the shop, it specifically targets food and beverage. Food and beverage code. It doesn't specifically target any of the cannabis code. So I tend to think that someone in the office of the Attorney General was the one who responded, because they responded to the improper code. Did that make it legal or not legal? It doesn't really matter, does it? Just the fact that they sent a letter. So the Attorney General's office just has to respond. And to say that there's an investigation going on, well, there's been an investigation going on against, or not against, but with the adult share industry since the beginning, since 2018. So it's not something new. They're always going to be watching, and we work directly with them. Why else would we be there legally? It would just, one hand washes the other, right? So what is this all about? Well, it's about an election that we just had. That's what it's about. It's about pulling things towards red and blue. When we're all in the middle, we're purple. Where we're at, the cannabis industry is purple. We have conservatives, we have liberals, we have everybody. So to say that we should be pulled one way or the other is just kind of absurd. And I do think that it is a lot less important to give attention to that letter than it is to actually looking at the law and what the law actually states. And there is a lot of gray area in the law. Otherwise, why would there be all of this back and forth and all of this argument? But don't you think that they would come straight to adult share and close it all down if there was really that big a problem? I don't know.
I would like to think so. And leading to the fact that there's very little, if any, negative aspects of you contributing negatively to society or working outside of natural commerce in a way that's kind of understood of how we do business. Okay. Yes, it's a niche market, right? It's different. First off, can you describe just a bit about what share means for those that this is this constantly discussed, but the wording is there, and also what separates you from the vape store or from some of the different shops you see popping up all over the place that run the gamut from just your vapes to different kinds of THC plus, right, and right, those things.
Well, the difference between us and the vape stores. Let's address that first. The vape stores are typically tobacco-based. That's tobacco. We don't have any tobacco product in our building. We don't adhere to it, and it's not something that we would stand behind. I really don't know what the vape stores are offering. I don't go to a lot of them. I do go to adult share businesses and check them out just to kind of help or see what's going on. But the vape stores I pay very little attention to for obvious reasons. They're everywhere. But the different types of THC, that's frightening to me. Okay, so THCA, deltas, all of that stuff. Okay, so you say you have THCA, for instance, in a product. That's delta 9. Delta 9 is a natural occurring element in the compound that is THC, but it is a trace element. It represents 0.08% of the THC compound, which means it's extreme trace amounts. To say that, okay, your vape store is selling THC or delta 9, which is naturally reoccurring in the THC compound, that THC compound would have to be spun down and isolated in order to get that product out, enough to have enough of the psychotropic element, which is the THCA, that is triggered with heat to make someone high. That means that, okay, for instance, in 1 gram of cannabis, 0.08% is represented by delta 9 or THCA. That's an extremely low percentage. So your THC content would have to be 14 to 34% in order to get enough THCA or delta 9 to have the psychotropic effect. So if you have a product, for instance, that says it has 50 milligrams of THCA in it, or delta 9, then that product would have had to have been isolated. We would have had to have pulled delta 9 or THCA out of the organic product and then added back in. That's a genetic process that we're not really very good at as humans.
And that was the recent legislation in Virginia was, I'm not going to say against Delta 9, but basically banning it of some sort.
It was Delta 8.
Delta 8, which of course it reads pretty bad when you kind of mess with DNA of stuff, and basically lightening up what we associate with the high effects. The psychotropic effects are oftentimes left out of this conversation in public ways, which is really unfortunate because excuse me if I get the wording wrong, but some of the excellent aspects of CBD for physical pain relief and also for appetite increase and things like that are excellent, of course, but the psychotropic aspects are certainly desired, one, by society, and two, leads to a lot of the benefits that we see with veterans.